I'm on the road here, as you can see, and I wanted to share some thoughts that I had while I'm driving here. And I don't know who's gonna want to fight me on this, or if this is gonna kick up some backlash. Probably not, because I usually, if I expect people to argue back, it's usually not that way. It very rarely happens. Sometimes it does. Sometimes I get a response, and there's a lot of people, kicking back at me, like with my article, the grunge psyop, that actually got some traction and got some people arguing with me, and I did a video where I was responding to their takes on why I was wrong. But what I'm going to say here is, I think there is entirely too much. They're on the right, amongst people of the right. There is entirely too much invocation of communism, like saying, well, wokeism is really just communism. Feminism, it's just communism in disguise. If you take away all of its deceitful trappings, deep down, it's really just communism. No, it's not. Like, communism is a word that has a specific meaning, and Soviet communism was a particular system that existed for a certain length of time. Whether they were actually ever truly communistic or not is not really of interest to me right now. But this whole this whole trying to break down the left and say and say this or that element of the left that's making such inroads, that's so pernicious, is really just communism. I mean, that just gets old. It just gets really old. And we need to be careful with the terms that we use, because words have meaning. And if you just call everything communism that's left wing, or that's of the cultural left, then I think that's foolhardy. I heard a critique. I heard somebody talk about how, and this is like something I hear from reactionary critics of culture, of the maybe of the paleo conservative stripe a lot, or whatever the equivalent of the paleo like people on the right who are not free market right-wingers, who think Ayn Rand is as pernicious as Karl Marx. Some who would call themselves distributists, or some other flavor of that same kind of mindset. There's the critique that, well, what you see in capitalism, in free market capitalism, is just godless atheism, and what you see in communism or in socialism is just godless atheism. Now, in communism, if you're a believer, if you're a Marxist, then you are an atheist, because that's part of the deal. Religion is the opiate of the masses, and you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to believe in any of that stuff. You're not supposed to believe in a spiritual realm. You're a materialist. It's part of, it's called dialectical materialism. Dialectical because, well, I don't want to go into all that right now. It gets tiresome. But and I don't think I can explain it all that well. But I know I couldn't explain it in a way that would interest anyone, but who doesn't already know. But that's the deal with communism. The deal is if you are a believer in Marxism, then you are an atheist. But I've heard the critique that what you see in free market systems is just as godless, just as atheist as what you see in systems where it's where the state is given more more interventionist powers within the economy. And the truth is there's nothing about believing in free market, about believing in either free market capitalism or in believing in socialism of some stripe or another, as long as it's not communist. Because as I said, if you are a communist, then you are a godless atheist. That's part of the deal. It's not a pejorative. It's not even putting you down. It's just part of your ideology. But there's this whole belief that if you think free market capitalism is the way to go, then you are invariably a godless atheist. And like, what? Why do you? There's no, and I'm not even saying this as some kind of ardent defender of free market capitalism. Far from it. I don't know what kind of economy I favor. I'm not an economist. It's not a strong suit of mine. You don't have to have a belief about everything. You don't have to. You can assert things without being without taking a definite stand on every single issue that anybody could possibly have. So I have my pet peeves or my pet projects, my things that I focus on. In my own study of history and society and culture and spirituality and all that. But that doesn't mean that that I or you or anybody else has to just have, like, it's okay to say, well, I don't know where I stand on this, that, or the other thing. But if you're somebody who's a free market capitalist, if that's what you think is the way to go, it doesn't make you a godless atheist. And that should just go without saying. But there are people on the paleo right or the dissident right, with their critique of capitalism, of free market capitalism, of the current system, the globalist model of capitalism, where which de-emphasizes boundaries and all of that. And I think that is a pernicious ideology. But I don't see how just believing in free market capitalism makes you a communist. And a lot of the ideologies that we see today that are being pushed today by the elites, that are being pushed on us from above, and that have been getting pushed on us since circa 1990. I know the ideologies are older than that, but it was in 1990, after the fall of Soviet communism, that that we really started to see these ideologies, like the anti-white ideology, the anti-male ideology, the relentless push of radical feminism from corporate sources, the radical push for radical acceptance of every kind of sexuality, of homosexuality, of transgenderism, and so forth. Those ideologies are being pushed without regard to. Capitalism or socialism is really just kind of academic. Like, you can believe in free market capitalism, you can be a capitalist who you can be an elite, because these things tend to come from up top, from the evil elites, in my perspective, from my point of view, from what I have observed. You can believe in pushing these ideologies on the populace, and still still be a big believer in free market capitalism, or you can believe in pushing these ideologies on the populace and be some form or flavor of socialist, who believes in socialized medicine, the national health system or whatever, as opposed to a more, let the market take care of it, let the market take care of healthcare kind of ideology, and none of those, whether you're a capitalist or a socialist, has no bearing on these ideologies that are being pushed by corporate sources. All right, and I know you can say, well, corporatism isn't the same thing as capitalism. That's true. There's something to be said for that. And I do think that small businesses are more my I think I have more sympathy for small to mid businesses than giant corporate monolith conglomerates that bestride the narrow world like a colossus. But just to return to the main point here, it's quite lazy. It's quite intellectually lazy and irresponsible to just say, well, everybody's, this or that ideology on the left is really just communism. It's just another flavor, or it's just a resurgence of communism. Ultimately, at its core, it's communistic. No, it's not. And I think the reason for this kind of rhetoric is that people on the right, for them, communism is a bad word, and of course, I think communism is bad too. So it's a bad word for me as well. But it's still a term that means something. It's kind of like people on the left. It's roughly analogous to people on the left saying that anybody who's not with them is a fascist. Anybody on the right, that favoring, that voting for Republicans and stuff, that voting for Trump makes you a fascist. It's just as silly, really. It's not quite as irritating because you don't You don't hear it used, you don't hear it slung as this kind of pernicious ad hominem quite as much, nearly as much, because the cultural left is much more has saturated the culture much more than the right has. The right is more like of it exists, and it has power, it has clout, but it's still, it's like if you are on the right, you're kind of ostracized from the mainstream, and you have to find some alternative stream or means of expressing, having your ideas be put out there, and you kind of end up being ghettoized more. But in any case, just to return to the main point and bring this video to a close, I think people on the right need, I was going to say we, but I hate it when people say we when they're not talking about them, when it's just a passive aggressive way of talking about other people, because I don't do this, but other people do this, so I'm just going to be direct and say, when you're rightly critiquing these pernicious leftist ideologies that are prevalent today, that are heavily funded today, that are being pushed on mainstream America, or just mainstream culture across the Western world, you should resist just this temptation to say, well, it's all just really communism when you get right down to it, because no, it's not. It's something. It's its own thing. So there you go. Those are my thoughts.